Christchurch Regeneration Minister Megan Woods expects a disgraced insurer Southern Response to settle the claims on its books by the end of next year. A report into the use of private investigators by state agencies found Southern Response had used the company Thompson & Clark to spy on claimants, and it had made potentially illegal recordings the police are now investigating. Alister James, a former Christchurch councillor and former chair of the Health Board, will replace Ross Butler as the chair of Southern Response after Mr Butler resigned on Tuesday. I asked the Minister, Megan Woods, a short time ago why she chose Mr James.
Alister's a widely respected lawyer and director here in Christchurch. His own home was destroyed in the earthquakes and had to rebuild his home. He is an empathetic person. He understands that at the heart of all of the 500-odd unresolved Southern Response claims, there lies people and their need to get their lives back on track.
Yeah, when did you talk to him? It's a pretty quick appointment, so when was the first conversation you had with him about this?
I talked with Alister on Tuesday.
Were you thinking that you were probably going to need a replacement before that?
No, I had not talked to anyone prior to Tuesday about this.
So why an interim appointment?
Oh, that's very simply because the year has finished up in terms of cabinet processes. There's a normal process that you go through with Treasury interviewing people, that you go through a selection, they interview a range of people, but obviously there just wasn't time to do that in this case. So this is an interim appointment that we could get ministers with power to act to sign off. So what that means, he's appointed through to June. That means we'll be able to go through a full process in the new year.
What about the other board members? Because they're all foundation board members. So the chair has gone, yes, but you've got two other board members who were there during all of this shenanigans that were going on. So why keep them?
Well, there's actually only two other board members that are still there. So we're down to sort of a very small board now. One of the things that I had to be very careful about was the fact that we're in a wind-down phase with Southern Response. We certainly couldn't be in a position of not having any of the knowledge that is set around that table. A whole new board is not something that would have been the best way to settle the claims. The focus for me now is that there's 539 claims that still need to be settled at Southern Response. What do we have to have in place to make sure that we can get those claims settled as quickly as possible?
But is replacing one man enough to restore confidence in Southern Response?
Look, I think one of the key things is it's not just one man. There's been a huge turnover, particularly in the senior management at Southern Response since the activities were taking place. The chief executive is no longer there. There is already a new chief executive in place. That what we have to do now is make sure I have made it abundantly clear to the board and to the management that this is not something that I will tolerate. And that this is not the way that claimants are to be treated, and that they are to be treated with respect. And that the focus has to be on getting those claims settled and doing it in a way that is fair to everybody. In fact, one of the things when we set up the new claims resolution service here in Christchurch that Southern Response are part of the charter that we've got up in that organisation is that claimants will be treated with respect.
As you pointed out, this is a twilight organisation, so how many years left is there in this entity? Well,
the company's already begun the process of winding down. We've got 539 claims that are still live there. It's winding down its operations with a view to have effective operational closure sometime probably in the next calendar year, in 2019, but we'll have to track the claims and see where they're going. But the downsiding has to occur in stages. And the legal entity that is Southern Response obviously will have to continue for years to ensure that its obligations to policyholders are fully discharged. But in terms of the shop front for people, that I would like to think that we've got 539 claims remaining. In 2018 we settled 542. I'd like to think that within this time next year that we'd be looking very close to a zero number there.
What consideration, Minister, I'm interested if you gave any consideration into doing something like absorbing Southern Response into another agency, like making it an add-on to the Earthquake Commission or something similar?
Well, one of the things that's already happened this year, Lisa, is that we've set up the Greater Greater Christchurch Claims Resolution Service, which is where EQC and Southern Response, with community law and some other people, basically provided a shop front for people to walk in and be able to have their claims settled. So in some ways, we're already seeing the evolution of some of those other options for people to go through. What I want to do is make sure that we have absolutely the right processes in place to make sure that we are providing the fastest pathway for resolving claims, because that is the most important thing. There's still 539 claims. There's 539 people and families that haven't got hope back in their lives, that we have to make sure that we've got a clear pathway for them. But look, we'll be looking at options. As I said, that this.
So you're not ruling something like that out then, if you're still looking at options?
No, look, as I said, the wind down has already begun.
Okay, so one of the core issues here is about the politicising of the state service. So can you tell us what you know about how much the then Minister, Jerry Brownlee, knew about Southern Response using Thompson and Clark?
Well, I know when I asked Mr Brownlee, when he was the Minister back in 2016, about the use of private investigators at Southern Response, that he sent me a reply that said they were using Thompson and Clark, as well as a couple of other organisations that were named in that reply. So he knew that they were being used. He said it was for the purposes of staff safety, but he certainly knew that Thompson and Clark were engaged.
There are emails and correspondence that has been released basically under the Official Information Act following this inquiry. There are emails between Linda Fellwasser, who was the communications person for Southern Response, to a senior press secretary in Jerry Brownlee's office. The dates around that are mid-2015. Now, this is important because the inquiry found that the comms department at Southern Response managed Thompson and Clark on a daily basis. Are you concerned that unethical behaviour by Southern Response and Thompson and Clark was known about, if not condoned, known about by the Minister's office?
Oh, look, if that is the case, of course I would be concerned. I've demonstrated through my own actions that I take this kind of behaviour really seriously. I've said it is absolutely the responsibility to protect staff, but when it morphs into something else, it's not something that I can condone or tolerate. But they are really questions for Mr Brownlee.
Well, is more investigation required around that?
Look, I think that by anyone's measure, the State Services Commission's report is pretty thorough. I don't think there's a lot of stones that have been left unturned. I haven't seen the emails you're referring to. Were they part of the document release that came through?
Document release.
So they would have been looked at but by the investigators who wrote the report. But certainly if there's some issues that are still live, we can certainly ask the State Services Commission to confirm that they were looked at as part of the investigation.